Welcome to a bonus civilization cycle. I thought we would talk about these artifacts that are in South America. Are they, is Google messing with this? Is there actually, something other than a digital artifact that exists? But I came across this imagery on Twitter and I thought, no way. I always see these things. I go check them out myself. They always turn out to be bunk, bogus. But this time, to my surprise, I zoomed in and there they were. So are they real? Are they a digital artifact? Which I doubt. I mean, they're just too symmetrical, but it could be, Google really messing with us. And you got to wonder um, how many other Easter eggs are kind of out there. And David Dubine agreed to pop on and join me and to talk about the strange things out there.
Thank you for having me. Yes, and indeed, they keep trying to push this comet Atlas, 3I Atlas, third interstellar visitor of the comet Atlas. So you have to wonder, before when we had the live show, we were trying to think about, are they trying to gaslight and get everybody ready for some sort of alien, I wouldn't say invasion, but interaction? So to release this and then show this in the ice, are these the giants of old that are coming? I mean, think about if you really wanted to blend biblical mythology with some sort of Sumerian tales back in Babylonia with the Sumerian texts that have been translated from Sitchin and bring it all into like one neatly wrapped package for today's social media consumption. Would this not be just like the perfect? We got the images, we got the sizes, we can figure out how big they are, or they match with, the number of cubits and whatever that they were in the biblical era. So everything matches. It's nice. It's succinct. And now where do we go from here?
Right. I'm used to looking all over these Google Maps on Google Earth to find stuff like, you know, all kinds of neat archaeological sites out there that nobody's doing anything with. And you can actually find that all over Google Earth. But to come across something like this, and so this is just kind of really out there.
Yeah,
I
dive
mean,
in there for a second. I when you showed me this, I was thinking, all right. And then on the right, there's another one. Is this a giant burial ground for? Because think about it. If I can, I'll send you a quick something to share. But it shows how the Earth pivots between glacial pole shifts and this sort of thing. Antarctica is right near the equator, and brings it up to like 20 north, 25 north. So if you think as the pole had shifted, that is what is barren ice now would be on the equatorial bands. So let me see if I can send you something while we're chatting here. I'll send it over to you on Telegram, as a matter of fact. So I'm
right.
trying to find
Well,
things that
this is just wild. I mean, I immediately, don't want to believe that this is a real landscape because what that would mean actually is, mind blowing that if this was actually a real artifact, because you can see I've made a lot of images like this myself. It's kind of, I've termed it forced pareidolia, right? Where you take an image and you blend it together. But see, they're all over this little area here. There's a giant skull. I mean, and if you zoom in, it's like a fractal. There's more and more of
that's
this
a
weird
large nose
stuff.
with two eyes, or is that the fractal between in the eye, with the center of the eyes there or something? I do a lot
Right.
of reverse imagery on Egyptian hieroglyphs as well, because you can see what looks like plasma devices for me. I'll do the same thing. I'll butterfly them and then I'll invert them mirrored, and then you start to come up with what looks like technological devices.
Right.
Is it
I
just
mean,
me seeing that, or is that truly there? Is that the way they hid the information?
well, either way, if somebody created this digital image and then overlaid it the telemetry of this, glacier right here, because that's what it is. It's on an island that actually looks like, it kind of looks like a face too, the whole island. But when you zoom in on it, it is definitely mirrored imagery. This one looks like a mantis being over here, but then if you just change the
And as you
perspective,
go up, just more faces. But there's another one, and below that. There's like 6 or 7, 8, 9 in a row right there.
right. And then even if you zoom in closer, it becomes more faces. Like that looks like a guy with
That looks
pointy ears.
very Mayan hieroglyphic,
Right.
or you could say Khmer as well, Khmer style, and
And
Angkor Wat.
I actually found it all the way down to here, and it's this forced pareidolia. I really think that something interesting might be here, but why they put this digital? I mean, because that's wild. Because this isn't like a hoax like usually where you go look. Because watch, I'll just back out of it. This is Google Earth I'm looking at live. You know, you zoom out. That's at the bottom of South America, and then I copied and pasted these and just put it right in there, and it went boom. It went right to that thing. So this is a real
Interesting
thing.
if they erase this out in the next few days or weeks to see when you like what we're doing right now, if that gets erased out eventually.
Right. Well, this is wild. In any explanation for it that there's something here that actually looks like this, which to me is kind of doubtful because I can see the image kind of going down the cliff here. The mirror image completes. Like this devil's ear is on this side. And look at this. It's just wild. I mean, look at the definition of the images they made.
But then the fractals within the fractals too, because when you look, okay, you're looking at a larger face, but if you zoomed in, I'm sure you'd see a smaller face within, like say, the center of the eyes, the tip of the
Yeah.
nose, or something that was seen further up in that. So, again, the iconography that's presented here is this to get us ready, and they're putting this out on purpose to allow us to see this. That's the blending of, because I've seen different measurements of 3i atlas, and now it's starting to jet itself on. It's hard for us to conceive in space when something's moving from like north, south, east, west, because it doesn't make sense. You're looking at different axes in space when you're like x, y, z axis, when you're trying to make something in propulsion move. But they're showing that there's jets coming out in a certain pattern that are taking the object itself and creating movement in it, so it stays on its trajectory. There's nothing normal or flat about this. We're just floating through space because of gravity, and it got flung out from somewhere, and it's kind of just oozing that way because it's just gravity's taken over. No, this is a definitely propulsion system to keep it on a very specific course.
Right.
So I'm just wondering why the release of the propulsion system off of 3i atlas comes, and everybody's pointing you to this thing down here. Just doesn't make sense. Ransom, I sent you that thing over on Telegram with the pole shift, so you can see where it went from Antarctica when it shifts back and forth between the supposedly 25,000 plus year shifts.
All right. Let me add that as a video over here.
I did. I sent it. I was looking at this earlier. It is in Telegram, so you can find that one. Yeah, but so Atlas comes very close to Mars. Again, they had it going directly over Mars in the initial projections of its course. But as you can see, it's either sped up or something is different now where it's off by, a couple arc minutes off of Mars now where it was not before. So the trajectory of it has changed even, because before it was supposed to be a perfect aligned, I mean, directly over Mars, and they were worried about some like energetic interaction between it. I'm not talking about lightning bolts from planets, planetary lightning or something, but some energetic change or interaction, because it's completely opposite polarization from somewhere else, because it's coming in from out. And you talked about that in the last show too. Completely opposite polarization. So what would you expect when it comes to a different polarity? It's going to activate somehow.
Well, it's just, anybody that plays with magnets knows if you got an attraction, you got an attraction. It's a strong force that pulls it together. Like I play with these super magnets, these big chunks that'll smash your hand if you don't watch out.
Yeah, be
Um,
careful.
and if you flip it and you put the polar opposite on there, it is a strong, equal force as the attraction. It pushes things away. I mean, and you can imagine all these objects in our solar system, each with
Oh,
their own
Antarctica.
charge and what they're made out of and all that.
Yeah, right. When you get to the purity of it as well. So if you're talking about something closer into the galactic core where magnetic properties are going to be very different. And we're out here at the very, we're very far out off of that on the wispy edges. You got to think about cloud densities too. Like if you're going to form a cloud, think about the very wispiest kind of clouds you would see in our skies compared to like dense hail. I mean, that's literally the difference between being that close in to the magnetic galactic center for the Mayans termed it as the Hunab Ku. So there was something very significant that they understood that was the center of whatever it was, magnetism, and just the way that interacting field generated life out here, and they could map it how it ebbed and flowed.
Right. It's like the
Think
ancient.
about a wispy cloud compared to a hail, whatever size it would be, even pea-sized hail. That's very different density, but the magnetism as well when you're forming stars. I mean, we're looking at atomical structures. That's going to be super different when you put something together at that close range. Yeah.
Right, and it seems like in the news, I mean, we might be going there with leaking uh anti-gravitic stuff. I mean, this is all over the internet right now too. China
Yeah, I saw
intercepting
that. That was a great
meteor.
video, by the way.
Yeah, and there's some really cool videos that go along with it. The thing is moving around up and down. It's not quite what you would expect with a meteor. um, Actually, here's a video of it right here. Let's see here, or
Yeah, and
at
there's
least
been about 15 or 20 fireballs coming in the last few days across so many different countries. And I encourage you to look through the news and check them out from Argentina, Brazil, Spain, Portugal, over Italy. And these are not the same ones that are cited. I mean, they're different ones that are coming in and different trajectories over these different countries.
let's play this here. They're saying they launched airplanes after this thing.
Well, supposedly they shot it out of
Or
the sky
jets.
with some sort of, missile defense system before it impacted. So you really have to wonder, how big was that thing that would have impacted, and what impact event would have happened had it hit the ground?
Oh, well, you could put so many topics on that. Like, what was it made of? Was it technology? I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a big deal, even if it wasn't technological. If they knew it was a specific, like, kind of alloy meteorite that would have landed, that could have revolutionized stuff. If some guy, like, I don't know, a regular metal worker came across it and found it first, that would change the balance of power significantly if it leaked out and got published somewhere, this new formula for an alloy. Uh, in ancient all the ancient Chinese, Japanese, Korean mythology, you basically tie this super cool steel that they use that revolutionized things with meteorites, and some kind of entity even being along with that to give it to them. Hey, look, this meteorite, if you make a sword out of this, it's going to chop through everybody else's sword.
And then, put in alchemized mercury in the mix there too. And you could, because if you energize mercury and you put an electric charge into it, it will start to spin. So if you're looking at, something really simple like gravitational vortex power and different vortices from Schauberger principles, if they understood the most basic principle of harvesting that 6 millivolt charge that's around us and how you do electroculture and get that copper to remagnetize the soils, if they were able to just get that basic understanding and amplify that with hundreds of those copper wires coming into a central point, that would amplify the electrical potential of that enough for something to start spinning, where if you touch it, you would really get shocked.
Right.
If you're sitting around it, that's okay because it's dispersed around us. But if you take hundreds or thousands of pieces of copper wires and put them into a central, and they're touching, and somehow they were able to use lead. I mean, lead's an easy one to understand back then. Or even if they had gold, they could melt it, which is a high conductivity. Or they understood silver because you had these talons of gold and silver across the emperors. I mean, they all had just like bastions of gold and silver, so they understood the electrical properties of that. So if they could have melted that to something, even a solid gold like cylinder, that they could have welded gold coming off the copper into that, or even had gold itself wires going up by the thousands into the atmosphere, they could have charged that vessel. And by having that, and if they understood the properties of mercury that would turn in and spin itself, okay, well, you can't generate electricity from that in an innate form. But if you had something that would spin and create, like we understand generation of power, that's why we have superheated steam. It spins. There's a rod behind it. That spindle spins something else that then generates on. So imagine if you had the basic principle of understanding that mercury would spin indefinitely with just like gold wires in the air and you could get it to spin, then that's a lot of possibility of all these things we ever knew. We are thousands and thousands of years behind history, and it's been lied to us and hidden from us about this linear generation of technology from A to B. We're winding the clock way, way back here.
Yeah, and that's actually what I wanted to bring up with these next couple of articles here, is that the mainstream is getting destroyed. And when I mean mainstream, I mean news outlets, I mean archaeological you know, paradigms that they've had forever. They're all falling apart. I don't know if you've seen they're digging under Sexy Woman in Peru. They're going to, maybe come out, and this may start a new decades of arguments, but they've dug under the block, under those megalithic stones. They're trying to date the soil from underneath it, and they've discovered all kinds of tunnels and all kinds of stuff that goes under that. So those are much bigger complexes. There's giant areas of Peru that we're finding new pyramids with elongated skulls. And, speaking of that, everything is about to be turned on its head. Here's an example of
Well, how deep are those
civilization
walls down?
15,000 years ago, right here.
How deep do those walls go down? Because the Texas wall as well goes down, 70, 80 feet, and they had to stop excavation. But how deep do the walls go down there at Sexawaman?
Well, let's look here. See, here's a giant tunnel. They're going under it.
Okay.
This
Yeah,
is
you
a
can go way
Weird
deep.
Old World on Twitter, and they are doing an archaeological dig at this moment right now, digging up. So look at some of these pictures, initial pictures of the wall here. They're digging down. See, the wall keeps going right there. At least another. That guy probably is about 5 to 6 feet. So let's say that's at least 4 feet right there. And then they're finding soil layers down here, but they're also finding more construction, and they're taking samples. So we're about to get some answers. Like, unlike Gobekli Tepe in Turkey, this one's actually getting dug out. And you see that little in the corner there, they have a hole dug out. They have drilled sideways to get a good sample of the soil from underneath. So they're going to do radiocarbon dating on the soil, but then they're going to do other kind of dating too. And this complex goes underground. So this is just the top layer that's visible to the top. So now we know, just from their little bit of excavation that's finally happened, that there is tunnels underneath too. So they're going down there and looking around. So things are about to change. Like, here's a
But why? See, that all fits into the alien tech that's inbound for us. Perhaps that has something to do. Like, oh yeah, we were the one who did that. By the way, that thing goes way deeper, and like all these things adding up with the arrival of the comet and all these new things that were never, 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 ever allowed before to be talked about, discussed, or shown are suddenly now front page news. So you tell me the flip, like what is going on here?
well, the whole story of mankind's about to change, and just in time for the Great Reset. I mean, if
And
you
the great
reset
arrival.
everything, then you get rid of all this stuff, and then it's all hearsay. There's not much of it, and most of this new discoveries is being documented digitally. Not much is being written down in the form of paperwork, books, printed pictures, things like that. So we're in a whole nother world. But this is an article that points out the new world's oldest mummies, 15,000 years in China, right here. They were smoke dried over a fire. And this is, they've linked the DNA to the people that now live in, like, Australia, New Guinea, some of the Pacific Islands. And we know today that they're one of the kind of bigger mixes of Neanderthal, Denisovan, and Cro-Mag, for a better word.
Australopithecus.
Well, that's a little further back there than these
Well,
guys.
I'm just throwing it out because they try to blend. See, in history, they try to blend all those continents together. It's like three continents smashed together as one determinant for an unknown species. Right?
Well,
It covers all three continents in case we're wrong.
I'm pretty sure, though, that guy's a little removed from these guys. These are verified because people today living, we know that there were different types of humans that were around for at least 450, 500,000 years. I don't know why they only document two of them going back that far, but it makes sense to me that if there were other hominids, they would have been that far back in time as well, living on the planet somewhere. And I think whenever the oceans, finally rose up another 400 feet, that was the last of the little areas that people that were segregated could live, and they had to all come and jump on here. But just think about this: these are people 15,000 years ago in the middle of China, mummifying their dead. Just you know, and the previous oldest ones were the Paracas people, which that was kind of what I was going to get to with this. These are 7,000-year-old people, and there's just these endless pyramids and stuff. None of them are documented. There's people laying around the surface. These guys are doing some cool work, and they're not. Look at all of that building. I mean, here, let me get that bigger. These are
And the
all
more rainfall there is coming down on these arid areas. So you have to think about the way the drying patterns were. If we go from the Indus Valley, which was a cradle of civilization, we go out to Mesopotamia, that area in Iraq and Iran and all these areas that are incredibly bone dry right now. Those were verdant. I mean, when I say that, milk and honey forests 6,000 to 7,000 years ago have dried completely out. Right, but there were cities, vast. I mean, this cradles of civilization. Like we started humanity from these areas for all the arts, sciences, engineering, and everything that has brought us to this point, minus a few setbacks here and there on resets. But the amount of buried, undiscovered relics and cities is probably 100 times more than we have excavated or found right now. So then swing right over to what you're talking about, the desert areas. Like all of these areas are experiencing like record rainfalls, record snowpack, and you would just expect that surface layer would start to erode off of that, and then suddenly you would see shapes. Because imagine, the soil deposition layers are coming in. It's just sand, or it's just some sort of debris that comes in and layers on top. Well, you're talking about millimeters per year. So then rewind the clock in massive floods, and what would have once taken, 100 years to deposit, a half an inch of soil on top, suddenly a record flood, once in 1,000-year flood, wipes away 3 or 4 times that amount. And then suddenly the rain that's wiping away what was built off of soils, there's an enormous amount of what we're seeing, those same structural layers or those outlines of buildings and, what you consider streets. And it was so interesting is when you look at that, it's very much the way the British had laid out cities. It wasn't just some
right.
hodgepodge of a circle here, rectangle there, and it's like, hey, I'll build here, I'll build there. Those were very centralized cities, planned cities. So you got to think about that. We were told that planning, when did Ransom, like when did planning for cities and what we consider centralized cities, grids and things come in for engineering? What, 400 years ago maximum? At the utmost
uh,
years ago.
8,000 years.
No, but in terms of what we can term, like the British came in and did this, and the
Well, they all
Portuguese.
did it. They all did it on the same mathematics and royal foots and everything as they did all the way back into Sumeria. And what you're looking at behind me is 7,000-year-old cities just
Mhm.
totally gone that disappeared. And you can see they did the same grid patterns. They might
Same.
have been a little more. It looks like eco-friendly, I guess you would call it, where they built along the contours of the Earth because it seems these Paracas people and their ancestors knew how to farm very good in on the dry areas, and they were there to see it become dry. So what's
But maybe it
happening?
wasn't as dry as you think when they originally constructed those areas, but it did dry out subsequently as they marched forward in
Well,
time.
that's what I'm saying. They were there to see it dry out, and we know that because when the Nazca people moved in, it was arid and there were no more lakes or anything. However, there's archaeological sites that show duck decoys and duck calling devices and things like that. So they had all of that sophisticated stuff back here in these cities in South America 7,000 plus years ago. And, we're looking at now they're opening this little path that shows you that there were a whole different set of peoples before the last deluge. I mean, like groups of people you wouldn't recognize today. And one of those groups were these elongated head people. We've now found sites that go back to 12,400 years, which is right around probably the big flood, all the way up until recently in Russia, Croatia, right in the Ukraine, about 3 or 4 thousand years ago. And then now it looks like evidence they were moving into South America thousands of years ago too, and then finally went extinct there. And they knew some of the people that we know today, like the Inca and the Nazca and things like that. But what's really weird about them specifically, the Paracas, is that they were farmers. They dug these ditches, they irrigated, and they learned how to farm on this dry land. When the Nazca came in and killed them, basically, we find these mass graves everywhere. They didn't have the same luck farming, so they started using these guys' skulls for divination, trying to pray for rains to come and farming to be able, and it just didn't happen because they had lost technologies right there. And now we're getting this story of we're finding these, like that other article, 115 uh you know these mummies that are all over the place. They go back 15,000 years. So they keep pushing and pushing the time of organized cities and things like that back further and further. And they're having to push, the occupation of the earth by humans of different kinds back further and further. So I think the new number is more like 1 million years, when they really started pushing this idea of when we crossed the threshold of being cavemen into civilized people was only 10,000 years, at max. And really they started telling us it was 5,000 years ago, and then they pushed it to 10, and now we find in these 12,000-year-old sites that prove that they were obviously well on their way, or even on the backside of civilization.
Yeah, so it's 50, think about 500,000 years, that's 50 times longer. So that makes sense that, but the main question is, why would they lie about it? Is it a control mechanism through religion that gets you to believe that Earth is only this old, that this cataclysm has only occurred one time and the next one's going to be the rapture? I mean, they're pitting us against each other by, oh, that group of pitchfork holders is, oh, they're going to be over to you torch holders over there. Those pitchfork holders are trying to take your stuff away, flame holders over there. Like this whole thing of pitting everybody against each other. It doesn't matter if it's socioeconomic or if it's religious or if it's political belief, whatever it is, it's been running the same thing, because somewhere at the top, the same people have been in control for a vastly eon epic amount of period of time, and they want to retain the control. So what is about lying about history that's so important to dissuade us from looking back or getting us to question how old things really are? Because if you do take it back and look into some of the older, let's say we're in iteration 2.0, but if you go back to the previous times, 30,000 years ago, when there was supposedly an advanced civilization around, that means that we came through the melting of the ice off the ice age, which was a natural thing that occurs, which would have absolutely destroyed society anyway with that type of sea level rise. And you're coming off a stable climate for 30,000 years into a completely discombobulated climate like we're seeing today. I firmly believe we're heading back into an ice age slowly, but the changes we're seeing, the geomagnetic shifts that we're seeing, magnetic anomalies on Earth's magnetic field declining, and then all this cosmic ray bombarding, there's a huge amount of things happening. I believe we're descending into cool. Now we're going to hit into an ice age like tomorrow. No, but the step off into the cooling where it steps off indefinitely into the next ice age, we're at that point. So that I'm always looking at the inverse. They've told us that we're heading into epoch heating of everything's going to melt and we're going to burn up on the planet, global boiling. I'm saying everything they tell you, it's the opposite. So we're heading into a cool period. So how many times through history would you try to get the masses to pit themselves against each other to try to retain control over these very specific periods in time when things flip? Because half a million years of history of humans being here. But it's interesting at that 400,000 year mark of the demarcation of a lot of stories of the Anunnaki coming down and gene engineering humans into like a gold mining race to work for them instead of themselves working. but then now it's going back a million years. Well, that just kind of got blown into the dust then. So is it really the Anunnaki stories that are true, or is it this new timeline of a million years we're hearing that's true? I mean, and again, I would ask you the question, why now with all of this new information and the confusion of history as this strange comet arrives here right around Christmas to the Earth?
Well, there's plenty of distractions out there for any big
So many,
event.
so many.
I mean, you could just go on and on with the list of them. And in the background, like, we always get woo woo. What are they doing? Actually, and I think we have a good idea of some stuff. And I wanted
It's
to
so
take,
interesting those images that you have there right at going down toward Antarctica. You're way down in what, southern Chile there?
yeah, that's very at the very tip down there on an island. And now they're pushing some new, ideas we kind of knew was coming for a long time, but seems sci-fi to most people. Here's new space junk removal idea. We're just gonna go up with our ion engine and start shooting them out of the sky. Doesn't that sound nice? I'm sure that won't impact anything. And good luck on spotting artificial or non-artificial objects flying through the sky after they start doing this, because then you're going to see all kinds of stuff like that article we just saw in China where you see stuff coming down in the atmosphere, moving around, changing directions, getting shot down or blowing up. And you'll never know what it is. Was it space junk? Was it aliens? Was it a drone? Who knows? But
Was it a straight up asteroid?
right. But this part right here, they mentioned this new ion engine design, just like first episodes of Star Trek.
Free power, man. Again, the soft disclosure of some sort of different power system, because I'm going to go back to it. We've had a few shows talking about this. The tri demand now for electrical power, every watt on the world is spoken for. We got AI running, and it's going to continue to increase. I think it's power demand this year was 3.3% of all global power goes into AI, but within 3 years, it's going to be 12%. And then we have all the blockchain and all the mining capacity and all the digital ledger. And then we have all of us with our factories and humans needing to heat their homes, then all the factories that are going to go with that. But if you notice, all of our factory production has decreased, all of our qualities of life has decreased, all the power prices went up because we're funding to build all of these AI facilities. So, they're talking about, oh, it's this, it's tariffs, that. No, they're just deconstructing our lives so that power that was used in factories gets rediverted into the AI data centers because, of course, they need to track and trace you.
Well, of course.
Claiming to be God. I know. Again, you talked about the archetype through the universe that would be this itself.
Well, what's funny is we're looking at these demonic looking images and on Google, and I can't explain it. I haven't found any rational explanation for the placement of those images. I don't think they're real, but that leaves this. That leaves either the AI that they put in charge of rendering did it, or a human being placed those images on there, putting these weird demonic Easter eggs, around the Google Maps. Why would they do that unless they wanted to send some kind of message? But with, you were just talking about, when you're pushing this time period back, we know that through genetics, we mixed with Neanderthal about 750,000 years ago they think the first time. And then again, about 400,000 years ago. And then again, about 40,000 years ago. So this was a continual little change of DNA and arrangement of hominids or humans on the planet. And then you're getting, we're getting into the
Wait, is that the story, or have
weirdness.
they been gene editing this entire time for a million years, and that's just the story they give us for new species?
Well, it shows that there's a long history of interspecies mixing from various different groups. There's monkeys, there's canines, there's felines. There's many different animals and examples you could show where totally different species, even sometimes with different numbers of chromosomes, can mix and make a hybrid, fully functional new species or hybrid species that can procreate. And now we're finding it, or at least telling everybody, all through science. And, a couple of weeks ago, I brought up this article that they were bragging for the first time that they could change a single neuron in the brain of a fly and make it have interspecies mixing going on by changing its behavior in its mating. And here's another one. Scientists found a creature that shockingly gives birth to two different species. And then they found this ant that takes some other species, it lays its own species, but then it makes genetic clones of other species and lays their eggs also. And this isn't the only example recently of supposedly spontaneous cloning through animals. I told you last week about the reptiles at the zoo. They incubated the infertile, supposedly eggs. They weren't fertilized, and 12 identical clones were hatched out of that. So either we're just, they're pushing the idea of complete changeover of genetic stuff. And let me show you this one.
Well, then let me interject here. They would have to give an excuse for, like Robert Felix talked about, if we come into a low magnetic field state, there's going to be all type of new species popping out.
Absolutely.
If you had an excuse for that, because if we suddenly start to see something that's a mixed breed, like we have ducks, so we have like 5 different types of ducks, and they interbreed a lot. So we get like random crazy combinations of them, like a mallard duck with a pure green head with a cayuga, which is normally black. So you got this beautiful bright green head with a black body, which is not, you just don't find those. Usually they're purebred, right? So you get like an apple yard, which is generally a brown body with like a full-on white streak across. Cool. It's like wearing a little tuxedo, bow tie, like pure white across. Like we get these different mixes of these things with like the cresteds. But Robert Felix talked about that. He was saying during low magnetic field state, you're going to get an enormous amount of new species. And then sometimes the very next genealogical line of the same exact animal, reptile, or whatever it is, fish, birds, you're going to come up with a completely new species right after that because of different magnetic field states. I mean, we're starting to see this in a very, very, very soft fashion. And as we march forward, they're going to have to show you that things are going to change on a dime, where you might see a certain, but like cardinals, for example, you're red for the males because they need to attract the females. Then suddenly we're going to start to see a red cardinal with like blue streaks and yellow streaks and zip. It's going to start looking like an Africa, some kind of tropical toucan type of markings on it. And that's like the shift that we'll see genetically in it. And that'll be the new type of, cardinal that comes out. But these are the types of things that you would be looking for. So they're going to have to explain that to the public, like the things we've grown up knowing that species is always that coloration and that size, and then suddenly, boom, it just changes. Same like global warming. They needed to tell you that the climate was going to change, not because of magnetic field, but because of CO2. But they were warning you in advance. This thing's coming. You're going to see the changes. Don't be spooked when they arrive, but we have an excuse for you. Same, but different is what I'm saying with this.
Here, I'm going to put this over here too. This is an example right here of what I was talking about. This is totally in nature, has nothing to do with man. You have a brown howler monkey and a black howler monkey, and they both live in, Mexico and South. But there is a hybrid zone in the middle where these two monkeys with different chromosome numbers have mixed and make it a third species that doesn't intermingle or hang out with either of the original species. So like if a disease came through and killed off one of the original species, you would just be left with this hybrid species. It would just be totally different from then on because they would, take the space, the territory of that original species. But they don't really explain it. But this happens a lot. I'm sure you've heard of like the zonkey and ligers, and all of the wolf species of North America has a percentage of coyote. All of the coyotes tested has a percentage of red wolf, and this goes on and on. When you go into chimpanzees and bonobos, they have a small amount of DNA that shows that they have had breeding events, and you have to wonder what happened, what caused them to change behavior and all to decide that that's okay. And I think it's something similar that happened to hominids. But now we're jumping to the technological age, and things is about to change because humans now have a new input on how things evolve from here on out. This is an article about how chips and biochips and the intermingling of AI, humans, and where we're going from here is all laid out in one NASA article. It's avatars for astronauts, health to fly on NASA Artemis 2. And what it's talking about is they're creating this chip that holds biological information and is in real time monitored by this algorithm so that they can study the differences or changes that are happening to the real astronauts versus how they can manipulate it in this chip. It's a tissue chip experiment that will revolutionize the very way we do science, medicine, and human multiplanetary exploration. So they are getting ready for us to have the idea that we are leaving. But here's one even more wacky. Remember, we were talking about the idea of synthetic DNA and what it could do, and I mean the synthetic DNA in the way that they're creating DNA from scratch all the way up. So you can make humans or automatons or anti-life, I guess you could call it, because what this article is about is the danger of mere opposite compounds with synthetic DNA that they can build. Not in nature, it won't happen in nature because things have to have a certain I forgot what you call that. It's the direction in which the molecules spin. So the vortex goes only in one way, so the molecules can only connect in one way.
Well, they would cancel themselves out. They would those things together would come to a null and void. That was always the thing about
Here it is.
antimatter they're worried about. Well, even if it exists, that again, that's a misnomer. Does it even exist? I mean, a lot of this stuff we've been talking about and taught from dark matter, it's a fallacy.
Yeah,
It's
but
plasma, 99.9999999% of the universe, but they want to try to show that there's some dark thing that's like a void out there. No, it's all intelligent. It's all plasma.
well, this is kind of like getting into those realms of a real other dimension, but one that exists within our dimension. And what they're calling it is mirror DNA. So,
Well, the
you
mirror
have
would cancel. They can't have both. You see, and like that one, those would mirror and cancel each other.
well, how would that work out if you built one whole and then created it? I mean, like when we touch, do we disease each other? You know what I mean? I mean, how does that work out? So
If it
basically,
was
they're
an
talking
entire
about making it
100% replica of the other, yes,
in reverse.
in reverse.
Yeah.
But if it was even like 1/1000th of 1% different, then it wouldn't. We're talking about an entirely mirrored copy of it down to 1/1000th of 101% of exact mirroring, and yeah, that would it can't exist. It couldn't exist.
They're going to make it. And they admit itself creating such cells could pose unprecedented and irreversible risk to human health and the environment. In other words, just creating it may start some kind of chain reaction, and they are talking about they are going to make it. So they know
Now,
how.
I'm of the volition that nature would cancel itself out. It would almost be like a movie where and it would just
Right.
come
Well,
back and
that's the thing is this is not nature. This is us using computers to use the right molecules and build the RNA and DNA in reverse. So not just a mirror opposite, but totally spun in the opposite way. And they even talk about that they previously couldn't do that because it only builds in one direction, right? And one, I forgot the term for it. I found it here.
oh,
Yeah,
somebody was trying to spam the Civilization Cycle chat
sterility.
group. Had to
There it
delete
is.
them, ban them. Excuse me.
Somebody saying bad things in her chat.
Oh no, they're like, go to this group. This group is so great. I never recommend groups. Like a lot of people do try to spoof our Civilization Cycle chat group. Please join there if you have a chance. Civilization Cycle over on Telegram. Some interesting conversations taking place through the day there. Ransom and I try to jump in and add a couple nuggets, but people try to pretend like they're us and say, "Hey, go to this thing. It's the awesomest thing since sliced bread. We both recommend it." But
Right.
we
We
don't.
don't. We don't recommend it.
We don't recommend anything except joining the Civilization Cycle YouTube channel or the civilizationcycle.com newsletter that would give you the bullet points for the things we talk about. Otherwise, yeah, go back to
Yeah,
the
there's the
demon in the
original.
ice. Yeah, newsletter sign up right there. That's the only thing we really say.
You know, the only reason I was kind of pointing out that article is it just shows that everything right now is completely backwards, and not only just backwards in common sense, but all the way down to the way the scientists are they're trying to make things backwards. They even claim, you know what, this is bad. It'll be bad if it ever came in contact with stuff, but we're going to make it anyway because we know how. And then you got NASA just basically admitting that they're going to intermingle you know, computer chips and biology to run how we live. And that's a beta experiment right there. That'll be used like in these citadels, all of that stuff. They want to monitor.
I could see them almost saying that because the Comet Atlas came, it sent some probes down. There's some contamination on Earth. Now we all have to do some sort of integrated hybridization because that's the only thing that'll save us because of this new bacteria that came from this thing that was sent. Like this Comet 3I Atlas is so integral to everything that's moving forward. I can't tell you why, but it's like every cell of my DNA believes that the information given out there, all the trajectories, everything that's shown, the way that all these narratives are lining up and everything is commingling, and they're trying to bring us into a new era based on this set of religious prophecy that was foretold many years ago that's going to sort of manifest or could full manifest during this time. And at the same time, we have an arrival from an intergalactic object that could have some sort of intelligent design with it. But then they're going to bring us into the new world to save us with all this new, like you're saying, whatever types of synthetic DNA, RNA, printed technologies that could be the savior for us. So they're going to try to hopscotch us, and like bring us into being the savior by this is the only thing that'll save you. If you don't get this gene therapy. And by the way, if I might add something, if I could throw some, I didn't even mean to bring this subject up, but it's just interesting because I got a notice from my insurance company here, health insurance, no less. Limitations and exclusion. The exclusion of gene therapy is added as follows. Coverage is excluded for all services, treatments, and procedures involving gene therapy. This exclusion applies regardless of the therapy's purpose, method, or delivery. Did we just not reclassify the COVID-19 shot as gene therapy?
Well,
So
we
everything
didn't have
that
to.
happens because of that, you are no longer covered because it's classified as gene therapy. So if something were to happen to your health because of that, you're no longer covered. And moving forward too, if they're going to be pushing this as gene therapy, what you just described as a antidote for the alien virus, then if you take that, then they're not responsible for anything that happens to you. And also, they very cleanly defined cell therapy, gene therapy. The limited exclusions and the limited exclusion of gene therapy or the exclusion of cell therapy, but cell therapy is totally okay. What we're talking about, gene therapy, not. So there you have it. Broken down in black and white, and you can accept the terms or get out of their program. And good luck getting another one because
That
today's world's almost near impossible.
that has excluded everyone that has taken experimental shots
Yes, it
in the
has. You're
past
totally on your own.
3
Nightmare.
years or 4 years, whatever. Um, it doesn't matter if they push it and call it gene therapy. The science is described and defined as a certain, you know, actions that they do, and that's it, to make it. That's what it is. So it doesn't matter if they call it that when they give it to you or tell you to go get it, or the news says, well, that's not that. This is different. It isn't different. And that just means that the health insurance companies, probably not just that one, but all of them, are about to scratch everybody for about everything. Now, why would they do that? That would be the end of that whole medical system once people realize they're not really covered for anything.
Well, then they would stop paying premiums, and you
Right.
gotta realize a lot of these life insurance premiums are coming into these, think about life insurance and insurance companies are the biggest behemoths driving our economy. Think about banks. Banks invest and park their money in these insurance companies, generating a 10% yield. So they'll give you out what, 1 or 2%. They'll take your money in deposits, but they're parking their money in these insurance companies. And these things are generating about 10%. So I've been looking at, getting a home equity loan at something like 7%, taking that money or part of it and parking it in some of these insurance companies to generate a positive 3% yield. Just waiting for the rate cut tomorrow. Should drop a little bit to like 6.5%. But a lot of people are, trillions of dollars are in these insurance companies right now, trillions, and they're generating yield out of that. So what does that say when we start not covering people, and people stop paying their premiums into this behemoth of money generation at well above market rates. Not financial advice. I'm just saying, any of these insurance companies, if you have to look at like whole life policies and different types of things. After that payout's in there, the beginning of it, it starts to accrue at 10%. So if you're going to take money from one, like if you don't want to get sued, this is the thing that somebody was telling me about. Mortgage your house to the hilt, take your home equity loan, and then once you have that, remortgage the home equity loan. It takes a percentage, and then remortgage the home equity loan after you remortgage the home equity loan again. So if somebody's going to sue you, all they get is a house that's been mortgaged 3 times, but all that percentage rate that you're paying to pay back those home equity loans is going into a 10% rate off these insurance companies. Whatever rate you're paying, as long as you're lower than 10%, it's positive equity. You're just generating money.
I got a question for you. What if you
Throw it.
got like a big mortgage or loan on your house at these prices now, and then we have a housing crash and all of the value prices go down? I could see how some people could actually make out on that because their
Way big.
property their property won't even be worth what they got a loan on the
Yeah, let me
property
explain
for.
that for somebody real quick. Let me find this guy who somebody sent me this guy. Hey man, you need to watch this video here. Okay, this guy's name is Doug Andrew. Index Universal Life versus Whole Life. What banks don't want you to know. And then his name is Doug Andrew on YouTube. Doug Andrew. He's got a couple 100,000 subscribers. He talks to you and tells you about all these things, like how to get higher yields off using these different insurance products than what anything's offering in the bank. The thing he went into was his own personal problems and things that happened during crises. If you're triple mortgaged out on everything, the bank wants to work with you more because they know the banks are gonna lose if they don't work with you. They'll extend your loan on the end of your loan. They're like, hey, we'll give you an extra 12 months to pay. You don't have to pay for a whole year. We'll just tack it on the end of your mortgage. But if you've been paying like an extra $500 a month, $1,000 a month to like draw down that whole thing when you're like, what's your balance on that? Oh, I'm going to give $1,000 a month. I'm going to pay it off early. I'm going to pay it off. You're the first ones they're foreclosing on because there's the most equity in your property for
Right.
them to swoop. That's what pissed me off the most is the more you pay in and the more positive balance and equity you have on the property, the vultures are going for you first because you have the most meat on the bone.
Right.
And that was the whole thing is he was saying that, this guy, he had like a $1 million mortgage on his house. It was $1 million. He got the home equity loan. It brought him up to like 1.2 or 1.5. I can't remember the exact numbers. Then he mortgaged again. He was like around 1.7. And then everything went underwater in 2008. And he's like, they came and talked to me personally, like, we will extend anything you want because the bank's at 100% default rate at that point. Where if you'd paid down your mortgage from say $1 million down to 200,000, the bank's $800,000 positive on your property. And they're going to swoop in there and they're not even going to give you, they're not going to give you they're not going to give you an extra second on your mortgage if you miss a payment. They're going to be in there 1 second after you miss to foreclose. But anybody who's double, triple, quadruple mortgaged out and the banks are completely liable for that at that point. If you've been paying down your mortgage, I'm sorry, you've been sucked into the lie that we've all been brought up on our entire lives. Good credit, pay it down early. No, the opposite. Mortgage the shit out of that thing 3, 4 times if you can. Take that equity and plop it in something that's generating 10%. Because if you're getting, and if it takes you 7% to take that loan out on your property again and again, whatever it is, then you're generating 3% positive per year. That's free money. That's the whole thing is like, how do you generate free money and equity by using other people's money? That's the whole thing. Banks do it. They use your money to plop it into an insurance company and get 10%, and they pay you what? A piddly 3%. Oh, it's a high interest 4%. Well, the bank's scraping 6%. Why should I not just bypass the bank, become my own bank, and just do it myself and take what the banks would take? And this is what this guy talks about here all the time. I'm so sick of working and being a tax slave and a wage slave. You have no idea how much it irks me that I've wasted all of my life working for other people to pay them interest and taxes and everything else along the way. I'm done with it. Legally, I can do everything and just generate yield off of we don't know the rules. They've taught us the fake rules. They've taught you how to be a tax slave. It's time to break free from that. And this is what this gentleman, does through, and many other people have taught also. And this housing market is absolutely going to crash. So if you have any equity in your house, not financial advice, I would mortgage the absolute shit out of that thing before it crashes. Take all that equity, and then the banks are going to be coming to you begging so you don't foreclose, because they're liable for your loss. And they're going to swoop your neighbor who has 800 grand of equity in their house. How sad is the world we live in that way? Right. Sickening is what it is. Sickening.
Well, on the other hand, if you're...
Excuse me to go on a rant there. Excuse me.
No, that was cool.
Tangent. My bad. I'll reel it back in because we're talking about comets and things.
No, I was just thinking, if you're on the other end of that and you've been saving up, money that's liquid, you wait till after this crash and then buy you some property.
Yeah.
But if you own the property, that's it. You're in a different ball game.
Depending on how you're mortgaged out. If you're mortgaged out on home equity and you remortgage the home equity twice, banks are going to come begging you, please do not foreclose on this. We'll work with you to the end of the earth, because we're going to take the entire loss on our balance sheet, and that's going to wreck the bank's balance sheet. But if you're way paid down on your mortgage, you're just a sitting duck.
Right.
So
I don't have a mortgage.
Yeah, well,
damn it.
You're lucky.
No, I'm just joking. So kind of, final thoughts on this weird Google anomaly. That's the only thing I can call it. So,
but then look at the edge of the entire ice sheet over there. It looks like a whole side of the skull in itself, in addition to what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Like just what you had when you zoomed in there, that one angle looked like the entire side. Yeah, like go over to the right a little bit. Yeah, it looks like a whole side of the skull there too, a whole another skull if you zoom out a little bit.
Right. I'm thinking somebody put this here.
Because the lines are too defined. Like, how do you have a glacier that has that very defined, like, go up there, look at that dark blue piece. It almost looks like they're plugging in parallelograms or some kind of thing.
And that's exactly where that is.
But the ice does go all the way around up to the north there with that pyramid shape. Like, go up to that very, like, if you go up to the north and the west a little bit, probably around that 10 o'clock position, you'll see that triangle up there, or that pyramid shape as well. Oops. How large is that?
It says it's a quarter mile. We could do the perimeter here, but just straight to the bottom where it stops is not even a quarter mile. 0.10.
What about the little demon in the front there, just from like the head to the feet there?
Let's see here.
Yeah, right there. Like, zoom in on dude right there, and then that one right there, white dude, the super bright white one.
Let's just start right above its horns that it has there,
and up a little bit.
I don't know.
How many feet is that? Go to
0.02 of a mile there. So it's not very big.
5,280 feet is out of a 0.2 times 0.2 would be 0.1 500 feet, about 5280 times 2, so 5,000, 1,408 feet, something like that.
So what do you think? Well, I could just do a perimeter here, like, oops, wrong button. If you just went and did the
now you got me. I got to get on the calculator, man. I'm just one of those people. I'm sorry. It's part of my personality.
There we go. And then back up to about right there. And it's saying the perimeter is 0.33 miles. So an area of 114,000 feet. Oh, you know what? I didn't even do that right, because I didn't get this whole side.
Well, if you're going to go around and try to get do you think the perimeter is that itself,
Yeah, that's more like it. And that's 0.39 miles and an area of 196,000 feet. My thing about this is I really don't think this is here. I mean, there would be so many questions. Right.
It's off by a few feet.
So the question is why is Google playing games and putting stuff like this in here? You think this is just a rogue programmer a super random coincidental AI coincidence of just mirror opposing, or someone put this here because this one's just too well defined for me to think it's on accident. So they
Yeah, it
put
almost
that
looks like
there.
some of the
What
money that
for?
people mirror in that. So could you go up north and then to the west a little bit where we see that triangle in the ice up there? Go up a little
Looking at
more.
this?
Yeah, you'll see it as soon as pull it down. No, pull it down. It's outside that glacier section there. You can
Oh,
all you're
okay.
right at the edge. Yeah, go straight up there.
This?
Yep. Up a little more to the north, a little bit to the west, a little bit more to the east, a little bit more to the east. You're almost there. You can see that like triangle ice, and that you can see that. No, you're
This?
too far. You're too far to the east. No, go more to the west and zoom in
Okay.
a little bit. Okay, now go north of there a little bit, and you'll see. Yeah, right. Go to the left. Go to the west. About maybe 100 meters to the west. A little more. Stop, and then go to the west where you see that triangle shape. You were there. No, it's you can clearly see that white triangle going up. You're right there.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a peak. I mean,
A
if you were in,
peak.
yeah, because I had it on 3D. You see? Then you when you put it back on two dimensional, you see kind of these shapes. But even that, you would spend all day looking at stuff like this, and you're never going to get that stuff. I mean, it just sticks out too much.
Yeah, it does. It's almost sticking out on purpose, so you notice it on purpose.
Yeah, and it's directly aligned with the cardinal directions. So that's north
That's
and
correct.
south you're looking at. So somebody put that there for a reason. What is Google playing at? What is the reason? Why is that there? It's not a hoax like many of the things you find on social media. You could put those numbers in yourself. And if you look here, that's definitely like a Satan guy. It's a skull
Mhm.
face with horns, and then it goes down and it's got that, Leonardo da Vinci looking thing of the arms in different places. And then
That
right
looks like
over
a
from,
bat in itself. If you go down and take away the main head that you just showed, if you zoom in on that, yeah, there you go. You got a bat right there, some sort of
right.
owl type of shape thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. And even if you look down here,
Yeah, there's another eye with a nose right there. I mean, you
there's
just
these two
never stop.
eyes and a nose. And if you back out, this guy looks like he's on his hat. Like this guy right here is wearing a hat with all those images on there. And then you got this demon stuff over here. What looks like a dragon right here. I mean, or a wolf,
Oh, that
maybe.
looks definitely reptilian for me. I mean, sheesh,
Uh,
that very looks like a reptilian king.
yeah, and then you get this guy up here right on his head.
I
And then
see
when you
some
go further,
crazy, people send me stuff all the time, and I see that demonic face right there. That very much looks like,
yeah, and
yeah,
then
right
there's
there. You
like
can
a
see the
woman.
nose, face, and thing. Yeah.
And then like kind of if you
Further
back
out, you
out, it
got
looks like
bad
a
ears,
dragon.
another set of eyes, and a nose. It's like layering on top of each other. Wherever you look, there's another face, and within faces on top of faces. It's like
You know,
all this thing generates into just like one. It almost looks like a totem pole of
right.
faces going down like a mile long.
Well,
If you were
I've
just to make
made
a long, excuse me, a long, very long cylinder out of that, and you just squeeze that to where the eyes and faces are, that's almost like a totem.
right. Well, I've made a lot of images like this. So basically what you do is you flip it, put it over itself, and then,
Yep.
change the opacity until it matches perfect. It's a mirror opposite. Or you could just take one object and flip it and put it on its edge. That's what this
Yeah.
is. But beyond that, the only place I've seen it in real life is where when people cut marble and then put the pieces together. I've seen that at a lot of like Mormon churches and different stuff. Part of their architecture, they would flip the marble pieces till they would match mirror, and you would get this forced pareidolia effect. And like I remember when I was a kid, a guy took me over to the church and said, "It's the demon church. Watch, let's go over there and look at it." And we went, and it was a big marble mirror opposite pieces, just like this, and it did had that forced pareidolia effect, which leads me to believe that someone at Google is playing around. But why? I mean, what would be the reason of this to hide this in the telemetry of a map? Because you could just, like say I just went over on the other side of the island, like right here, just on the other
Zoom in and
side.
see if you see something else.
Nothing. It's clearly defined glacier or water. You can see even the chunks broken. You see that? Doesn't look
I see.
supernatural at all. That's on the same island. It's just
Who
right over
lives
the
down there
mountain
that
there.
can go actually check this place out?
I don't know. So probably Native Americans still live on these islands. I mean, this is the extreme South.
Tierra del Fuego.
Yeah, it's all the way down there.
But again, that's where the dragon crashed into the ocean and split those two pieces apart, according to the legend.
Right. So this is our extra woo-woo edition of
Extra woo
civilization.
because it is that time. And I'm telling you, there's just from the feeling and the information that I have and the research I've done, and everything is pointing to we need a global reset. We need a global reset of the economy. Now, something having some sort of extraterrestrial contact, I don't care if it's created or if it's real. The economy as we know it's going to go poof in a second. Everybody's going to pull their money out. It's just going to be a terror fest for, and even it'll be like a celebratory fest as well. Because some people are going to be so hapless and welcome the aliens. Other people are going to be terrified. We're going to take our money out. We need to survive. But nobody's going to invest for tomorrow. Like you got aliens
Right.
coming.
There it
Like,
is.
there's something to do with this. Like, oh, they've left us markers on the planet. They were here before. See, they left us all these signs and clues.
Well, imagine if somebody went there and this is actual a formation that's physical, real in real life. Then you got, millions of new questions now. Did someone put that up there as an art piece? How old is it? Who did it? Why? Um, but this is one of those bizarre instances of maybe something that I'm going to say the alphabet agencies put out there for people to just chatter and conspiracize about when it's nothing. And then they got this whole chunk of the population not paying attention to something important that's happening.
And that's where we're living. So it's up to you to do your own research and try to really delve through these clues, see what's real or what's not. The comet's behaving strangely. I do admit it's a random one. There was a lot of information up to probably like the 9th or 10th of this month, and then it ceased. And yeah, we got one or two new images, got some blurry, grainy stuff from a private telescope, but the information has been tightly controlled. There's just like one new news release per couple days now. When before that, it was coming out just like nonstop, people talking, giving up information, agencies, but now it is really constricted down. Before it was a waterfall, now it's literally a drip, drip. Oh, here's one new thing for today. Drip. Oh, the day after tomorrow, there's another one. Don't know if that's all part of it to get this. Oh, why'd they turn off the information? Must be something they're hiding. And then these other clues come out, or with the rate cut tomorrow with the Fed, that sort of thing, all coming into it. Stablecoin issuance, the Genius Act coming in to try to reset the economy on the American side. The rest of the world's going to gold side, by the way. Gold, $3,700 today, all-time new high again. Like, there's just so many things going on, but what would be the best thing to reset everybody for everything is the question. They need some all-encompassing event beyond a war that will reset the entire. It's more about the global. It's not about the global economy or the global homogeny. It's more about the global psyche. That's the thing you need to focus on, is what event could reset the global psychological viewing of what reality is.
I
The
think they
psyche of the world needs to be bent and changed for all these new things to come in. Now, what event would that be, do you think?
they just did one a few days ago.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
did.
it's obvious, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to have kind of a lighthearted discussion about some crazy stuff without, that being the main thing that's out there. Because if you go out on social media or news right now, there's one topic only.
Yeah, but I'm going to step on a bunch of toes here, bro. Free speech shall not be infringed. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. We saw this going on in the Biden show. We're seeing it going on in the Trump show. Whatever form it takes, free speech is free speech. Yeah, you're allowed to talk. Repercussions are real, but you should not infringe on anybody's free speech rights. If the court of public opinion wants to take it out and get them fired and do all this, but you can't legislate laws where you can't say something. What part of shall not be infringed do you not understand? Second
Right.
Amendment, First Amendment. Oh, we're going to take rights away for gun owners from this because you believe this or this type of ideology. Bro, I don't care where you sit in that aisle or the spectrum of your beliefs, shall not be infringed. Second and first. What is with this clown show that everything, because it's on the Trump side, suddenly we got to infringe on everybody's rights and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't talk about this, you can't say this, you got to take guns away. Stop.
Right.
shall not be infringed. I don't care where you sit, shall not on any political party be infringed on ever, period.
And that,
Sickening to see that too. I can't even believe it.
that's the main thing that's, the most sickening and disappointing and true about all politicians is they think your rights, whether they're natural rights, constitutional rights, moral rights, whatever it is, they think they're negotiable, that they're
They're not
negotiable, no, negotiable.
negotiable.
Yeah,
Not at all.
right. Even like our communist mayor of, or excuse me, governor of New Mexico thought the Second Amendment was negotiable and tried to make a safety, what was it, a health emergency to stop. You couldn't be outside with guns in Bernalillo County. And I
Yeah.
don't think anyone listened to that. And then, people were just doing their thing. They just ignore this lady. She's the same lady that told us we had to stay home during COVID. I ignored her. I went where I wanted to go.
Yeah,
Oops.
because
With no mask.
we're on a very slippery slope here. You realize that everybody's okay. A lot of people on this side of the aisle or that side of the aisle agree or disagree. Now, this side of the aisle is suddenly saying, "Hey, we need to regulate this, or do that." That's a very slippery slope because 4 years later, it's going to go the other. There's case precedent then at that point where we are going on into trajectories here where we just definitely don't want to go. Law of the land needs to stand the way it is. You say what you say, that's cool. Freedom of speech, absolutely. If the public takes you to the back of the barn and beats you that way, that's your own prerogative. But to say you can't say something, that's completely unacceptable. Say it, and then you get your repercussions for saying it. But making a law against saying it, that's just
Right.
borderline. If you were in my district, I would absolutely get everybody, every resource I had to vote you out of office. And that's the way it should be. You should not be allowed to try to say, well, you're not even allowed to talk about it or say this thing. Of course you should. It's free
Right.
speech. I don't care what you say. It's free speech.
Well, it's like the idea of, anytime something happens, you have politicians all come out and say, they don't condone violence. We don't condone violence. America doesn't condone violence. But that's an absolute lie. We're founded on violence. Our police force, we condone violence all the time. The question is the reason, right? But it doesn't matter who's in office. They always do that. And that's the whole point of having the Constitution is it's non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. And they have that old saying, liberty or death. And people take that a lot of different ways, but really they never implied which people died and who got the liberty. That was the whole thing. Along with liberty comes that either from the tyrants or from the people fighting the tyrants. And hopefully we won't go in that direction. I don't think we will. I think people will snap out of it eventually. But yeah, it doesn't matter which side is trying to put regulations on your rights. It's not a good thing ever.
No, it's not. And when you look back to the chapters of history, it always starts like this. I mean, Biden tried it. I lived the whole you can't talk about the climate. It's a settled science and all this garbage. It's not settled. I lived that. It's been what I've been living through. So for me to be a free speech proponent, like really dives into me deeply because I lived this since like 2014. Everything I was saying, they're like, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. You should be arrested. You should be taken offline. You should remove everything. You should be debanked. You should be this because you're talking. Well, wait, it's science. I should always be able to debate it. You're not. You don't believe what NASA say. You don't believe what NOAA says. Okay, no, I don't actually. I should be able to still say it, shouldn't I?
Right. I should be able to get on and say that this is
Yeah,
verifiably on Google, a message, and I'm going to be like they are on the History Channel. Aliens. It must be aliens,
I
as you can
love that
see.
show, Ancient Aliens. That dude is still a classic with the giant hair up there. I forget that guy's name.
Right.
Classic. If you're
Aliens.
looking, man, we love your show.
Look, isn't that a mantis if you look at it that way?
It's a mantis. Aw.
Nah. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I thought, we could do some lighthearted stuff that's verifiable. You can go to Google. I'll put the coordinates right
You
in the
put the
chat.
coordinates down there. It looks like 55
Here you
degrees,
go.
32 minutes south. Oh, it's 37 seconds south. It's
There
at
it is.
69 degrees, 15 minutes west.
You can just copy that, paste
That's
that out
very
of the chat.
precise, though. 69 degrees, 15 minutes, 56 seconds west. That's super precise. Now you're going down into the feet.
Yeah, and that's definitely that spot. So it's one of the rare occurrences where I went online, looked something up, and there it was for real. Like that pyramid thing in Antarctica. I looked at it, you back out, you look at it at different angles. It doesn't look much like a pyramid anymore. It looks like a mountain range. But it's kind of argued. Somebody said a minute ago in the chat
Yeah, I can't see
something.
the chat for some reason. It won't allow me to
Where
look at
was it?
that.
Let me see here. Somebody said it was corrupted data. And, that was one of my thoughts too, that it was possible that it was just a data artifact. But then, when I looked at it and got a little closer into it, it's just it's too precise. It's too paradolic. I guess I don't even think that's a word, but um, it's forced pareidolia. Somebody did this on purpose. It's not an accident.
Yeah, to see somebody says here, Kim B says, I have not seen any praying mantises this year, which is very
Oh,
unusual. You know what's really unusual is me and my dad were out in the back property, and he was helping me pull. I was trimming around a tree, and he pulls in and he goes, "Oh, praying mantis!" And I
right.
saw I saw some walking sticks. Yeah, I saw 2 walking sticks and a praying mantis just as of the last week or so.
There's a
Kind of here. We try to
Chinese
keep the
dragon
environment. I
there
don't
too.
not spray out here or anything. Dude, yeah, walking sticks. They were real small ones. They're probably like 4 inches long. The little walking sticks, brown ones.
Yeah, if they haven't been at her house, they all came to my house because we've been having them all year, everywhere.
Praying mantises or walking sticks?
Praying mantises, walking sticks, the whole family. We get those out here.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And the Luna moth also. You have to have an incredibly pristine environment for those types of insects to be seen or around.
Those things are sad. The Luna moth. The poor male doesn't have a mouth because he doesn't eat after he's transformed into a butterfly. He just has one mission and he's living on battery power. That is such a trip that there are creatures out there with a finite life. They don't even eat. They're just battery powered.
To
Nature's
produce the
battery.
next generation.
Yeah.
Imagine having to get forced to go to the can't even talk. Just
Report for mating duty at the Echo
yes,
Life factory.
yes,
No,
yes, Sergeant Ransom. I'll be there.
they're prepared for a weird world. Anyway, I guess that's all I got.
Yeah, man. All right. We are out. Thank you for everybody tonight for joining us. I know a little bit on the woo side, but things are changing so fast. And then another fast changing in motion event is going to be tomorrow on the rate cut. Like it is going to literally be the catalyst for a super shot for trying to even spike the stock market higher, because we're really at the very end of this thing. I mean, so many economists that I watch that I have high respect for are unanimously, there's not even one of them, not one, zero, that are not saying we're heading into a mega collapse on the order of 1929 or greater. But then they're trying to push a rate cut to push the stock market up to try to get, the plebs to push more money into the stocks. This thing is going down heavy. So be extremely cautious, because the top minds in the world, including Warren Buffett with the Buffett indicator, it's the highest it's ever been in terms of like, you need to get out now signal, and everybody else in between from everywhere. There's not anybody that takes an objective look at the economy that says it's going to continue. They might false lull you into it's going to go higher. We need to pump our money into it, but we're really at the end sputterings of it. So just prepare for that. And if that truly is, then you can see why all this change has come right now and why everybody's talking about bringing up new systems in the economy. Because if the old one crashes, they already have 2 additional new systems ready to go. Ready to go. It's live already. Oh, the old one's gone. Okay, we're coming to stable coins. The old one's gone. We're coming to a gold-backed currency with assets and natural resources. We're already ready to go. Okay, the old one, bye. 2 new ones evolve like that fast. So don't get caught out in the cold with this. And good luck in your preps. Silver for the win. Agree.